Hello and welcome to Comedy in a Nutshell, the podcast where comedians explain why they willingly subject themselves to silence, judgment and the occasional drunk heckler. We're not here to talk about their typed five or how they're killing it on TikTok. We're here to find out simply what comedy actually means to people who live and breathe it. I'm the comedy nerd who's seen more than 1,800 different comedians perform live comedy, and you can find out more about my journey in comedy fandom on my website, thecomedynerd.com. Please also take a moment to like, subscribe, rate, review and share the podcast. Thank you. My guest this episode is an actor, podcaster and writer with credits on BBC Radio 4 and Radio Scotland, who used to perform stand-up comedy but quit after only a few years, with some of her reasons outlined in her new podcast, Panorama Investigates. It's Annabel Edmonds. Do you remember comedy being an influence on you sort of growing up?
No, not necessarily. I lived in America as a child, a very small child, but my parents were super into American politics, and that started them watching The Daily Show. Not really for the comedy, but that's how they got into it. So that's sort of my first understanding of comedy. And Adrian Mole books by Sue Townsend would have been sort of the first time I remember reading something and thinking, this is so funny, and laughing out loud and trying to keep quiet because I was laughing too loudly and I wasn't meant to be reading up past my bedtime. But consciously with The Daily Show was sort of the first time.
Yeah, I did Adrian Mole as a school play. My God.
Did you? Oh, who did you play?
Well, when I say I did it, I was the sound engineer. But,
I'm into sound, so a good sound engineer will make the big difference.
Actually, now I think about it, the Jessica Hines, as is, when she was Jessica Stevenson, she was in that play. She was in Adrian Mole as the grandma, I think.
Incredible.
There you go. Blast from the past.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very cool.
Can't believe I remember that. Jesus. Now that you're a comedy writer and you've been doing improv and stand-up previously, how did that come to bear? How did that come to the fore for you?
Yeah, so I guess it was really around university where I was seeing a lot of comedy and I thought, I want to do this. But I was so shy that I just thought, well, hopefully someone will eventually see me and eventually ask me to be on stage. That was my mad plan, that maybe someone would eventually discover me doing nothing. And weirdly, that didn't happen. So I was 29 when I first went on stage, and it was the pandemic. I got COVID, so I got COVID quite badly. So that was a bit of like, oh God, I really need to hurry up and do some stuff. Also, I only had like a limited amount of energy. I had chronic fatigue with it. Right. So it was, what do I want to spend my, available energy doing? Yeah. And this is also an embarrassment. I was watching Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, great show, but not fiction, not meant to be inspirational. And I was like, yeah, no, you don't have to just be immediately funny. You can learn. And most people don't get to the age of 29 for these incredible realizations. So yeah, I did it. Basically, that's a very long way of saying I did a course on Zoom, and then it's escalated from there.
Yeah. What was the course?
It was the Angel Comedy Course with Dec Monroe, who I'm sure loads of your guests will have done it or heard of it. He's just the loveliest man and so kind and so welcoming. And if I'd had a bad experience, I think I would have easily been put off, which I know people are like, oh, you've got to really want it. It's got to be your dream. But I think having someone be quite nice and kind to you makes a difference.
Do you think you had expectations of what that actually meant going into comedy? Did anything about starting it surprise you?
Yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised by how addictive it was. I thought I would just do it a couple of times and then it would be over. And that wasn't the case. I was surprised. I was surprised by how everyone has the ability to be funny, which is both a good and a bad thing, right? You're thinking, oh, I could be special, but no one's special. It's a lot to do with like, are you going to work hard? Are you going to be nice to people? Are you, going to have a brand that makes sense to people? But I had in my head for a long time thought, oh, there are people who are just naturally funny, and I know I'm not one of those, or there are people who don't have it and maybe do it for a couple of times just to cross it off their bucket list. I did not appreciate the craft. And basically what I'm revealing to you is I'm an idiot. These are things which are so obvious to everyone, but not to me. Not to me.
Having started it, how did it sort of manifest? Was it you being outside yourself? Was it something like the person of you on stage, or as it came to doing like improv and writing, is that now you being someone other? Is that like a persona?
People have said this to me, and I don't have a lot of control over my persona. I appreciate I do have one, but it's more a question of recognizing when it's happening and then sort of amping certain things up. It's just what happens when I get on stage. And I'm sure that's part of a fear thing, but it's been recognizing when audiences laugh, and it's often when I'm intense or angry, which is absolutely a part of myself. But it's not as conscious as I feel like character comes from, and I've done character stuff before. That feels much more conscious. It feels much more, I am trying to portray this and I'm making certain decisions around it, around my body language, around my choice of words to all fit with that character. Whereas for me, persona is, I'm going to do a thing, and if I recognize certain things, I will continue to do them, and then the persona will happen. That's how it feels like for me. And that's less so with improv, in fairness, because you're, portraying different characters, but definitely with stand-up and with stand-up and with the podcast, it's a case of recognizing, oh, I do this. I will carry on doing that.
But does that allow you then to say things that perhaps in real life, inverted commas, that you might not say out of politeness or something because you're now in character? You might say something doing improv as part of a troupe and sort of say, oh, I didn't know I was going to say that. No,
I'm very poor at social norms. I might say like a caveat of I'm not meaning to be rude, or like I will now attempt to cover myself perhaps in a way that I don't during stand-up. But no, generally I will say it. I mean, when I first started doing stand-up, I had a routine about hating pandas and how we shouldn't spend all our time saving these creatures who quite clearly don't want to be saved. I don't really believe that. Like my actual belief is a bit more subtle of, I do think we are like, we are attaching a thing to a cute animal whereby we should probably be more worried about, insects, which are not cute, but probably more important. So my actual view is much more nuanced, but in the stand-up, it was, fuck these pandas. I hate them.
Well, in fairness, that's what Chris Packham says, and he's a naturalist. So
yeah. So I guess I say things that I deliberately don't mean, but I think it's fairly clear what I do in fact mean. And I'd be very sad. Like it doesn't give me any joy if someone were to actually think I am a certain way. If they couldn't see through the persona, I would sort of be quite keen to be like, oh no, I didn't. What I actually mean is this. It doesn't give me any joy to trick people in that way.
Right. So what about the improv side of it then? Because you still work with Hoopla.
Yeah. I love improv. Improv is joy. So I started it because I wanted to get essentially better at crowd work doing stand-up. So I did the course at Hoopla. Like there are two big ones in London, Hoopla and Free Association. I happened to join Hoopla. There was no particular reason. I think it was just slightly more convenient for me travel-wise. But it's lovely. It's again, everyone can be funny. It's a group of you going, as long as we commit, as long as we listen to each other, there will be something funny. Like there just will. Like, and having that faith in each other is great. And you're never on stage alone. You're always with people, and you're always mucking about. Yeah. I love it. I do think it makes you a better stand-up, although you don't have to. But it feels also, sometimes stand-up can feel quite combative and quite, I'm going to convince this audience that I am funny, or I have a point to make, and this audience was crap. Whereas in improv, there's none of that. In improv, there's, frankly, if there's no audience, we're having a good time anyway. But also, it feels like the whole room is part of it. Obviously, in the suggestions, because there are not plants, you really are getting the suggestions. Yeah. But also, the audience is finding out the story and the joke at the exact same time you are. And when you make a mistake, it's a joyous, funny thing. And when you see on my face, oh, I've mangled my words, but now that has become the thing that we are going on, rather than be like, aha, we've caught this woman out. It becomes if you lean into it, it's a funny thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love improv. It's joyous.
That's something that's come up before. And I often say about the acts get energy from the audience, but the audience get the energy back. It's sort of cyclical.
Yeah.
So it's when people are having fun on stage, that's fun in itself.
Yeah.
Sometimes, even if the jokes don't work, what you do at that point on can be funnier even.
Yeah. Even I think there's, the thing, if you've got to make them laugh in 10 seconds, otherwise they lose faith in you. Yeah. I think it's even sooner than that. Not of making them laugh, but you just have to go on stage and look as though you know what you're doing. If you look as though you know what you're doing, you look as though you're having fun, the audience could even give you a full minute. But if you're like going on like, oh, I don't really want to go on, and then you say a perfect one-liner, you might get polite laugh, but that's all you're getting because people are worried about you. Whereas, yeah, improv, as you say, like if you go on and you look like you're having a fun time, you will have a fun time. That's just what's so lovely to me. Like with stand-up, it sometimes felt like, oh, I've spent ages crafting this and it's getting nothing, but it got something on Wednesday and then it killed on Thursday, but then I'll get nothing on Friday. What is this? Whereas improv has always felt like to me, yeah, if I commit, if I listen, if I have a good time, I will have a good time. Lovely.
Yeah. And you said about doing improv to help make you a better stand-up. How important is that element, or how important to you was the ability to sort of adapt and be in the room, as they say?
Yeah, it was important, particularly. I'm sure I don't want to be rude, but some MCs are better than others.
Oh yeah.
It's especially at open mic level. So it felt important to have the ability to do crowd work in my locker. If the MC had brought me on to nothing or had killed the room, which, I remember doing a gig in, I want to say near Victoria, and there were like 15 acts, as is per, but the MC did 2 minutes of stand-up, not crowd work, stand-up, in between each act. And it was fine. It was like decent stand-up. It was just killing the room as we go, oh, it's just 2 minutes again. So having the ability to be like, hey, where are you from? Let's make something out of that. Let's bring the room together because this guy is clearly like on autopilot and not making it, a community experience was useful. It was useful.
So you said about stand-up, this sort of competitiveness. Are you a competitive person yourself?
No, I know I sound like it. I know I give off the vibe, but I'm not. It doesn't. Okay, so it gives me almost like a jelly baby bit of energy of like if I've done well in a competition or if I've smashed my gig and then other people haven't done as well. That's like a little adrenaline shot of like, yeah, goodness. But it's not actually very fulfilling. It's not very joyful. It ultimately, like with sugar, it gives you a crash. So I'm not for comedy. I don't like to be competitive. I just don't, as an audience member, I don't see comedy like that. Like if you put, I don't know, Joe Lycett, Catherine Ryan, Nish Kumar on a bill, I'm not sitting there going, ooh, I wonder who's the best out of 10. I'm going, this is a great lineup. I also don't. There's different rooms for different things.
Yeah.
But stand-up is often inherently competitive. You want to progress, and there's only certain spots for certain people. Often, as I say, there was a real temptation to get to your tight 5 or your tight 10, which, don't get me wrong, they are things of beauty. They are like some of the best stand-up is like a perfectly crafted tight 10. Lovely.
Yeah.
But it wasn't feeling as creative to me because I was changing a word. Whereas, improv is, as I say, it's a new 20 minutes every time. With the podcast, I'm writing a new episode every week. Stand-up doesn't have to be competitive, but that's, in the end, one of the reasons why I was like, I'm not getting as much joy out of this as I am the other elements of comedy I'm doing. And a lot of that was in my head, in fairness. The audience weren't going, as I was not going, let's rank them. I was going, I'm going to rank myself because I want to get the paid work. And this person's done better than me, even though I saw them last week and I didn't think they were that good. Actually, I think the material's kind of hack. But the audience were laughing. So I was wrong. I was incorrect.
So this seems an opportune moment to mention the Hastings Newcomer of the Year, where I saw you performing in 2023.
Oh God, did you? Okay.
Well, in fairness and full disclosure, I was judging it. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I fully back your decision not to put me through.
For the benefit of those who don't know, it is a one-off competition. There are no heats, there are no semis. A bunch of comics get in the room, you do your 5-minute turn, and then 3 middle-aged white men point at someone and say, that one was funny.
Yeah.
And I've proudly ranked myself among the middle-aged white men.
Yes.
But it's a bit of fun, really, and it's kind of an advert for up-and-coming comedians, really.
Yeah.
So, given that, and everything that you just said,
yeah,
how do you feel about competitions as an entity, as an advert for comics, as a way to get something to write on their poster? How do you feel about competition in general, like on that scale?
I mean, I think you know that I hate it. I made that clear. But I know it's exactly what you've said. It's really, really useful when you're applying for gigs and I still dined out on that. I still said, Hastings finalist, thank you so much. Like that's why you're doing it. You're doing it for the career progression. But it's such a weird environment. I mean, one of my comedy mates who we did the Angel course together was also in that final. Sam Code, who I know is brilliant, and I don't think he'll mind me saying this. He didn't have a great gig, but I know I've seen him do like 100 gigs and smash 80 of them out of 100, which is incredible, and do such interesting things. Yeah. So, I mean, Sam Code is going on to fantastic things anyway, but you sort of feel a bit like, come on, guys, he's really good. But you get a bit in your head, and I just, I know, but I also know why, if I were in the position of a promoter, I do see why I would look at that. Because otherwise you got to watch a 5-minute video. That's a pain. And the people who win are great. So yeah, like the people who win are great. Like gong shows. I hate them, but I must acknowledge that it's always a very good comedian who wins them. So you'd go for the winner, wouldn't you? Yeah. And I will say, I have done well on certain competitions. I have passed some gongs, and I still hate them. It's not just a question of always bombing every competition I've been in.
So you mentioned about doing the course in lockdown.
Yeah.
How is studying and I guess performing comedy over Zoom? Yeah, when you have no energy in the room at all. I mean, how did that compare to having done the course and then going out? You mentioned briefly about being on stage for the first time.
Yeah.
Again, it's about perception and realization, what you were learning and what you were sort of practicing, then going into a live space.
Yeah. I would not have started comedy had it not been for the Zoom stuff. Like that was a bridge too far for me. So I'm very grateful in some ways that I started on Zoom. Having said that, comedy shouldn't be on Zoom. it's not. It's not the medium. I did the only person who I've seen it properly work is, of course, Viggo Venn, the clown. He was also on my stand-up course because he came from clown, so he was doing a stand-up course, and I had to follow him on my first ever gig. And he just did incredible things with like editing and Photoshop that made something out of being on Zoom that was you couldn't have done on stage live. But for most people, as you say, there's no energy. Like there's a very slight delay, which really fucks you out. So my Zoom gigs went sort of as well as they were gonna. Were great, lovely. Then I booked in, it would have been Comedy Virgins at the Cavendish Arms, which is a mainstay for most people who start stand-up comedy in London. I bombed. I delivered. There were no pauses in my material. It was all delivered in one long spiel with no gaps for breath. It was a 5-minute piece. I think I maybe did it in 3. It was. And then I proceeded to bomb for the next, I would say, 20 gigs on stage. And and I thought, I cannot leave now. This is too embarrassing. I have to improve before I can leave. So then you improve a bit, right? And then you did all right at the gigs. So then you think, well, I'm not leaving now because I'm doing better. And then you start smashing gigs. Why would I leave when I'm smashing gigs? This feels incredible. So yeah, that's the addictive nature of it. Some people are like, oh, there's magic when you do your first in-person gig and the audience are on your side, and I'm afraid I killed any magic that was available by... I've said my first 5 minutes was about hating pandas. Without the correct tone, without pausing and without looking like you're having a good time, you just look like you're a completely unhinged, violent woman on stage wanting to murder cute animals. Genuinely. And you're like, I'm not sure this woman should have left the house. Like, you go back into quarantine. You're not okay to be around people. So yes, don't do that.
So you talk there again about finding the joy in it and loving stand-up and this enthusiasm for it, which obviously then begs the question, why did you stop?
Well, there's push and pull factors. So when you smash, you love it. There does get to be... there was a point for me where even when I was doing quite well at a gig, you're thinking, oh, but I smashed that bit on Thursday, which didn't feel joyful to me. There was pull factors of getting involved with writing for The Skewer on Radio 4, getting some credits there, getting involved with sketch, improv, so lots of other lovely things which were taking up my time and another option. But as we're alluding to, I also stopped because I was doing too much problematic men admin. There is no HR in stand-up comedy. And one of the bleakest realizations I've come to is realizing that I miss HR. I hate
Words
it.
seldom spoken.
I know. I should have appreciated those dickheads more at the time. But there really is. There's really no HR, and especially at lower levels. One of the lovely things is you can just have a dream and you can go to your local pub and go, oh, have you got the upstairs room free? And can we put on comedy? And they'll go, yeah. So it's all very higgledy-piggledy, amateurish. No one's signing codes of conduct. No one's doing due diligence. no one is vetting people. No one's doing like a DBS check. And frankly, in any profession, there'll be wrong-uns, but there will be systems to get them out. And it felt like, I calculated it in the end. It was once a month I was finding out about someone or experiencing someone. And I don't mean like they told a joke I didn't like. I mean like sexual assault. I mean harassment. I mean stalking. Like that's the level I'm talking about. And it felt like every time, as I said, it was admin. It was things I had to then think about. Like, for example, I went up to, where was it? I went up to Hull, where I was maybe there were a couple of other women on the bill. But what we did before we went on stage was like, okay, who are your problematic men? They told me some names, I told them some names. Because that was the only way we had to communicate that. And I was up in the north for a bit, so I needed to know that information. They were coming down for some competitions, I think. But that's mad. That's bizarre that was the only way we had to be like, oh, I've heard this about such and such. It was getting to the point of thinking, I don't want to gig with this person, of course. But also I know that the victim doesn't want me to share their story, which is of course completely legitimate. So I'm then having to do some weird like lying about why I'm pulling out of gigs at times, which doesn't look great. I'm also sometimes trying to warn other people as well as I can. I'm not applying for gigs I would like to, because I'm looking at the bill and you're thinking, I'm doing all this for, 5, 10, 15 minutes, plus it's, 3 hours of travel as you're going further afield. This isn't like the joy to sad ratio is not working out for me in a way that I appreciate. Improv is also amateurish. Like none of the other things that I'm saying are necessarily, have HR systems either. But improv at least has a very clear ethos, right? And it has like a lot of talk about consent, a lot of talk about joy. It's also not competitive in that same way. So if one of my teammates is harassing me, there's no benefit to them. Like the whole team is suffering. Whereas if another stand-up gets me off the bill, like that's probably actually quite good for them. They get, someone else can get my spot. It felt relentless, but also like it wasn't going to end. Like I know that there's Get Off Life comedy, there's initiatives that people are doing, but you need a proper industry-wide system and probably unionization. You need to treat this more professionally in some ways, which is sad in some, but needed in others, because it's just it's dangerous, yes, but it's more sad. I don't want to deal with this. It makes me sad to deal with these men who, some of whom I've gigged with and had a nice time with, and then someone's going, oh, are you aware that he stalked that woman? And you're like, what? Oh, Christ, now you've got to deal with this. So yeah, the sad versus joy wasn't working out for me in the end. And I do occasionally do stand-up. So I do a great gig in Brighton called Boast and Show, which is the opposite of a roast battle, where you say nice things about your competitors. And that's hard, by the way. It's hard to be funny and nice. But I love it. Dawn Williams and Carl Kazana run that. So I won my heat by being very nice about a great comedian called Paggy RG, which was easy because they're fantastic. And going back to Comedia in September. But that's the sort of thing where it's people I know and love and I know are on it, and I can muck about with them, but it feels very inventive and nice. I will go and still do. But other than that, no, I can't justify being on the circuit anymore to myself.
I've mentioned before on this podcast, I believe, I can't go to roast battles. I can't stand them because I cannot watch people I admire and respect being rude to each other. I can't have that. It doesn't fit me. It makes me so anxious, which is why I was delighted to hear, there is now an opposite of that where people have to be nice to each other. But then my immediate reaction to that then was, how's that going to work? How is that going to be funny? So
yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to talk about your podcast a little bit more, but you've dedicated more than one episode to misogyny in stand-up. So, I mean, you've mentioned unionization. Is there a realistic solution? How can it be policed in this way?
Well, these things do have solutions in other industries, right? So I talk a bit about in the podcast. I volunteer for a mental health charity on a helpline, and people are always surprised by this, but we get a lot of men ringing up having a wank. That is really common. And they don't, some of them will be like, I'm wanking. And you're like, thank you so much for telling me. I am going to put the phone down now. But in your head, you're like, lovely. We've got over this. We can just move on with our lives. But like a lot of men will, and it is mostly men, I'm afraid, will ring up and pretend that they're in deep distress. And then it only hits you like 20 minutes in, oh, this isn't real. So I would say I get one of those once a week. So once a week versus once a month, you would think, oh, well, surely the once a week is worse. But it's not, because there are systems in place. So, for example, there's like a big misuse of service list, which everyone contributes to. And it's like, this isn't real, but it's like, Danny has a Newcastle accent and he really likes to talk about toenails. And then as you're hearing this on the phone, you're looking it up and going like, he's mentioned toenails. And then you can put the phone down. You've got like a proper training for it. You've got training on how to win these calls. I remember doing my interview and then being like, you are aware that it's not going to be, all people who are sad and in distress and want to talk. You are going to get people who shout and scream at you. You are going to get people who, I guess are sexually abusive towards you. And they made that very clear. Yeah. And it's just such a common thing to take a call at this charity and then just turn around and chat to the people on shift. And it's frankly have a bit of a laugh about it. There's no shame and there's no like, oh, what do we do now? Yeah. I know what to do now. Yeah. We've ended the call and we're adding to the misuse of service lists. And I'm speaking to my shift leader about it. Like, that's the process. There's no admin involved.
Yeah.
So I think you could do something like that. And Frank, like I also mentioned this in the podcast, speaking about it is important. Like the amount of men, and I will say men, having an absolute time with hecklers versus the number of hecklers is really interesting to me. Because there are hecklers and some of them are annoying. Some of them can actually make the set better, and we don't want to admit that. But sometimes it gives you a bit of energy in the room. But usually with a heckler, everyone's like, we hate this dickhead. The rest of the audience is sort of going, shh, I'm trying to hear them, shh. And everyone's on your side. So it's annoying, but it's not really like a big problem. Whereas I certainly know a lot of women who have done a car share for a village gig somewhere because it paid quite well. And then they are on the M25. It's 2 a.m. And then suddenly this guy who was a pal before is suddenly talking about tits. And you're like there's some... Have you seen the film Heretic?
No.
Okay, I'll briefly explain. So Hugh Grant invites 2 Mormon women who are coming to preach to him into his house. And he comes across as very avuncular, but with a little bit of menace. And there's sort of a dawning realization that he is not interested in the Mormon church. He has other... But it really dawns very slowly, and then they are trying to look as though they're not frightened, because if they admit they're frightened, they're absolutely fucked. And that was so recognizable to me. It's a horror film of like, I am trapped here. and I would really like to leave, but I have to pretend that everything is fine so that you will let me out at the service station. Like a lot of female comics have done that and been through that experience. And yet we're banging on about sometimes audiences don't laugh at my jokes. Yeah. Sometimes I get heckles. Like, fuck off. It's not the same level of problem.
I saw a statistic, which, again, I've mentioned this before. I should really be in a position to cite my sources, but I can't. But the statistic was that 60% of new stand-ups quit within 3 years. But what I don't get from that statistic is the reasons why.
Yeah.
So from talking to you and talking to other comedians, I can't help but think that a lot of that, or a significant proportion of that, is because of the way they've felt doing it. Because everybody thinks, oh, comedy, that's a lot of fun. It's all about laughing and playing around. So we'd say, yes, that's on stage, but what happens around that? And I don't know the answer to that. Unfortunately, I don't have the in-depth, but like you say, it's about talking to people and getting those answers and being interested in people's experience.
Yeah. And in fairness, it's not a case of people don't care. It's a case of people don't know, or they don't know what to do. The response I've got from the podcast from so many lovely, lovely men who've gone, I did not know it was this bad. How can I help? What can I do? I don't want my mates to go through this, has been like really heartwarming, but also a good reminder. Because sometimes especially at the time when I was quitting, I thought, oh, no one else cares about this. But that's not true. Like everyone involved in comedy, as you say, wants to have a laugh, wants to have a good time, hates these pricks. There's occasionally people will say things like, oh, I don't think it's that bad. But really, no one is going like, yeah, it's totally fine for someone to show you his dick at a gig. Like, no one is justifying that. Everyone is going like, I wish these people weren't about. I wish we could all get on and, do our silly voices and, make our silly puns. Like, that's what we want to do. So we just need to find a way of harnessing it, because it's not a case of people don't care. It's a case of people don't know what to do.
Yeah. And again, there are Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups, and there are resources to go to. But a lot of the time, these are things like don't play this venue or don't work with this booker or what have you. And of course, all the skill in doing comedy comes out of experience, really. And you need that feedback loop. And if you're avoiding gigs and avoiding particular people, you're avoiding those opportunities. And comedians coming up won't know about these resources, won't know to go. Yeah. There's no handbook for new comics to say these are the rules or these are the lines you need to stay within. And then you take that and sort of say, well, now there's this whole other stuff that we're going to dump on you as well. I mean, you're quite right that if you don't do a gig, you may be turning down opportunity. You may have less chance to hone your craft. But there are also lovely gigs. Yeah. And I'd also there's one comic I know. He's based sort of Cheltenham way, called Joe Taylor Mills, who will take himself off a gig if he finds himself on an all-male lineup, so that he can be replaced by a woman. And in the short term, he's turned down that gig, but he's built up a lot of goodwill, and he's probably getting more gigs as a result. So it's not necessarily a zero-sum game. Also, some of these gigs, like, are they worth it? Like, if the promoter's a dick in some ways, they're probably a dick in other ways. Like, if they don't care about their acts, from a personal perspective, are they likely to bother with good lighting, like the chairs being laid out all in the right direction, like these things which, as an audience member, you're going, surely it doesn't depend on that. Yes, it does. It makes a lot of difference. I promise you, I am funnier when the lighting is good and you're all facing in my direction and the football isn't on. And no one has been told there's comedy. I promise I'm funnier in the first circumstance than the second. So sometimes I do think, don't do the gig. Yeah. Like, if people stopped attending and doing these gigs,
they would die. Like they would wither away. So yeah, without an effective system to get rid of these pricks, like we have to be a community.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate is not a great answer at the moment, but it's the best answer I can give in the present before you have the system in place.
Well, as I say, this has come up more than once on your podcast. So let's talk podcast then. So Panorama Investigates.
Yes, yeah.
What made you start the podcast initially, and what's it all about?
Okay, so what made me start it is I'm a big satirical comedy junkie. So Daily Show, of course. Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. When it was on, The MASH Report. I describe Panorama Investigates as a bit like Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, except in half the time and with 0.5% of the budget. We do a deep dive every week into a particular political topic and make some jokes about it. So it's a bit current affairs, but also it's only on one thing. So, for example, talking about the 4-day week, talking about PIP reforms. We will only focus on that thing. We won't be making jokes on everything that has happened that week. And I felt like there was quite a gap in the market, not just podcast-wise, but entertainment-wise, entirely in British comedy with this. Because, as I say, we don't do this in the same way the Americans do. We have panel shows, which might have, a little bit of a monologue. We obviously have sketch comedy, but that tends not to be immediately topical. We don't tend to have the tradition of late night, here's what's happened, here's a monologue, here's what we're going into. So to me, that was a big gap. And I'm a huge fan of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. And if I had more budget, I'd do he often does a big stunt at the end, which has a point to it. But I have absolutely no budget. And I love a good funny noise. I love a whoopee cushion. I don't know if you're familiar with the podcast What Did You Do Yesterday with Max Rushton and I think a good 50% of my enjoyment is David O'Doherty's laugh. They could be saying anything, and as long as he's doing that sort of wheezy little laugh, I would enjoy. So yeah, the opportunity to do that is very exciting, and frankly, podcasts are a lot cheaper to make than TV. So I can do it myself. Yeah.
So you can still then enjoy comedy as an entertainment for yourself, be it David O'Doherty's laugh or whatever.
Yeah.
But so you haven't become jaded by being within someone who creates and performs comedy, or do you still watch it with that comedian's eye, where it's very much a nodding and smiling and go, I see what you did there?
Sometimes I find that with stand-up, and it is a bit sad because I used to be rolling on the floor how did they come up with this stuff? And now I'm like, oh, I do know how they came up with it, and it's become slightly less funny. Having said that, still whole new appreciation for clowning. Didn't think I'd like clowns 5 years ago. Love them, so good. Really, really enjoy comedy still, and if I can no longer quite enjoy stand-up in the same way, there's a bargain to be made in that it's opened my eyes to so many other forms of comedy and joy and things that I wouldn't have seen before. I'd have tended to be like, oh, well, such and such big comedy person is playing an arena. I'll go and see that, rather than going to a local pub and seeing what a sketch group has done. So I'm really pleased that that's opened my eyes up to that, because there's so many inventive, creative fucking weirdos in Britain. It's really lovely to go and discover them and see. I'll shout out one. The mayor and his daughter.
Fantastic.
Are a two-person. Yeah. Oh, you've seen them.
Oh yeah.
I'm guess. I still even can't describe it. I'm guessing they're a two-person sketch group. I don't fucking know. A lot of it is the daughter, who's clearly a grown woman, attempting to get booze off the audience. When I am saying this, it doesn't sound funny, but I promise you it's hysterical. At one point, they do a demon, which is them in effectively a bin liner. It's not explained what this demon is, and they're having to read like inspirational poetry out of a book. Unclear why, unclear what is happening or what the thread is in between. It's so good, but it's again like stand up, so I can guess the punchline. I can guess where a lot of things are going. I can't guess where they're going because I don't understand. But yeah, I'm deeply grateful to be seeing some more grassroots comedy because it brings me a lot of joy.
The Mayor and His Daughter, I saw them do a short spot at the Alternative Comedy Memorial Society.
Yay.
And I was initially bewildered when I saw them at Leicester as a work in progress, trying out their Hour for this Fringe. I absolutely fell in love with it. I thought it was so funny. So yes, must see. I mean, a bit late now, but I hope hopefully their show will continue for many more months, and people get an opportunity to go and see them because they're fantastic.
Yeah, they're great.
What about your personal comfort zone then? Because as a writer, as an improviser, and I'm going to presume it's not necessarily in stand-up, but you could prove me wrong. What's your favoured place? Where are you happiest, do you think, in that sense?
Oh, where am I? Well, I mean, obviously when you smash a stand-up gig, it's a high like nothing else. But I can't, that's a high, that's not necessarily happiness. There are lots of places. So I find work. So I'm part of Next Level Sketch. We do, as the name suggests, we do sketch comedy together. I find it really rewarding to do the read-throughs and people give feedback and then collaborate and, make the thing better with a group of people who are nice and funny and lovely. Yeah. That's not the same high of a 300 person crowd all laughing uncontrollably at once, but there's something really satisfying about working on a piece and making it better and as I say, collaborating with people who you really like. I love that. Yeah. It's also very satisfying when something is on the skewer. So I wrote for if you're not familiar, it's a sort of a mashup of the news. So that's always a really fun thing to write for. And then you can go, I'm on Radio 4. But John Holmes is the producer and creator, and he's been very supportive. And he's very supportive of a lot of new acts. So that's always a nice thing when you have your work published. Yeah. But yeah, just doing the work and sitting down and trying to come up with a joke, I do find that quite satisfying. I know a lot of people hate writing, and sometimes it does not come naturally at all, but yeah, there is a satisfaction to it, which is hard to beat. And I'm glad I've kept with it, rather than I will hone my perfectly crafted 10 minutes and I will do that for 3 years and I will establish a brand. I am so much happier doing frankly worse material. but more frequent and worse. I'm happier with.
Well, at the risk of where this might go, what have so far been your best and worst experiences in comedy?
Yeah, my best experience was I did a gig called This Next Act, which is like a Bristol open mic. It's not like a big gig, but it was my first time going out of London, and it was so the London scene is for open mic is bringers, and it's a hostage situation where you slowly drain the love of people who have made the mistake of supporting you in your life. This was very different. This was like a university town, so the room was full, and I remember getting up there and doing fine. I didn't smash it, but thinking I can do this. Like this is I can make a life for myself out of doing this. This is possible. Was really, really exciting to me. Yeah. So that was probably, that I don't think I've ever had a high quite like realizing this is possible. My worst gig, you won't be surprised to hear, was a gong show. as is the case for so many people, I did beat the blackout where you get 2 minutes grace, and then people have cars and they can gong you off. It wasn't the fact that I bombed, because as I've alluded to many times, I bombed many times. That's not the issue. The issue was, so 2 minutes go by, I'm having a shocker. 2 out of 3 cars instantly go up, get off the stage. I'm like, I'm with you. I'm totally here for you. The third guy hates me so much. He doesn't put his card up, which is a genius move. Like, this is an evil genius guy. I am then having like eye to eye with him, again, negotiating a hostage situation, but I am the hostage, going, you hate me, I hate me, we all hate me, let me leave. I don't want to be there. And then, like, people are sort of looking around, like, why is this guy, like, does he like her? And, like, the look on his face was clearly, no, I want her to suffer. I don't think I'd said anything particularly offensive, but he really took against me. It had to be, it felt like years, but it was clearly about 30 seconds. They had to use the override on the tannoy to be like, and she's off, to allow me to get off the stage. I don't know why I didn't just leave. Like, that was an option, but I was like, no, I'll wait till I have permission from this guy who despises me. Honestly, I admire that man. Props to him. That was a clever move. If you want to fuck with a comedian, don't gong them off, let them suffer.
So do you think that there's a single lesson that you've learned so far that kind of informs your philosophy going forward? One sort of particular group of words of wisdom that you carry with you?
I think, in the nicest possible way, no one cares about you. And I mean that in the nicest, best possible way. No one cares if you bomb. No one cares if you try something new. No one is going to remember. Like, I saw James Acaster a couple of nights ago doing his work in progress.
Yeah.
I won't reveal like what the whole thing's about. But at one point he talks about feeling like he'd painted himself into an artistic corner. And then me as an audience thinking, I don't care. Like, even though you're James Acaster, I don't care. I just, is it funny? Like, yeah. I don't mind. And this is like the most well-known, famous comedian in Britain of our times. I don't care. So why on earth would anyone care about my, like, if it doesn't work, so, like, there are more gigs. If a piece of writing doesn't work out, so if I apply to a competition and I write a script and they don't accept it, fine. Like, it doesn't matter. So therefore, do what you want and commit to it, and do a first draft, because you could do absolutely shit comedy because you can always make it better. It's much better to do that than being the wanker that I'm still a dickhead now, but I was a proper dickhead before. 20-year-old me thinking someone will somehow discover me. I don't even have to put in the work. Ridiculous. Like, put in the work, be crap, and eventually you will get better. And if you aren't, who cares? It's fine. At least you did it. At least you had a go. It's all fine. No one cares, in the best possible way. But also, if you really smash a gig, no one really cares anyway. Like, they'll be like, all right, move on to the next one. That was funny. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Like, nothing. Yeah, in the best way. No one cares.
How can we find out about where we can come and see you perform, and where we can find out all about you and your fine works?
Instagram is probably the best place. That's Annabel_Edmonds_comedy. The podcast is Panorama Investigate. So like panorama, but with puns. Panorama. I do Improv the Dead, which is a zombie-based improv. Kerfuffle, which is games. Ricky, which is Hoopla-based. But you don't need to remember any of this. Just go to my Instagram. That's by far the easiest place.
And so my final question then, as always, is how would you sum up comedy in a nutshell?
Yeah. I mean, there'll be people who do PhDs on this, won't there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and my answer is deliberately making someone laugh. Actually, scrap that. Making someone laugh. It can be, what I found as a kid, what I actually found the funniest was You've Been Framed and people falling down and really quite properly injuring themselves. They didn't mean to make me laugh, but they absolutely did. Just an old woman falling down on a patch of ice and probably like breaking a hip, probably doing some quite significant damage. 9-year-old me found hysterical, and 33-year-old me probably also finds pretty funny, but has like a layer of guilt about it, which makes it in some ways even funnier. So yeah, just making someone laugh, even if it's yourself, even if you don't mean to, even if it's, this very silly thing or a very important thing where you're talking about free speech, whatever it is, you need to make someone laugh. And then that's fine. That's comedy. No one cares. It's fine.
Annabel, thank you so much for being my guest. It's been a genuine pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me.